Hey guys, Tim here with Alive Student Ministry, and this is part 2 of our Carpool conversation episode with Big John from Woodlands Camp down in Cleveland, Georgia. Now, if you didn't see part 1 of this episode, go back into the archive and make sure to watch it. But this one is all about the SALT applications and how you can be a part of the SALT program at Woodlands, which is amazing. We have had kids all throughout the years come out of Alive and go and spend 3 to 4 weeks down with Big John at Woodlands Camp and have an unforgettable summer that has stretched them in incredible ways. Lastly, Big John's going to talk about what he's looking for in teenagers to be a part of this, worthy enough for the calling of being a part of the SALT program. So, without further ado, here's part 2 of our Carpool conversation with Big John of Woodlands.
First of all, will you tell, for those students that don't know, what exactly is SALT?
Yeah, so there's kind of 2 components to SALT. Actually, let me back up just a little bit. Every week of the summer, there's 4 programs at Woodlands that run on parallel tracks.
Okay.
There's our traditional program where kids sleep in the big log cabins, and many of you have been traditional campers that swim in the lake, worship at the chapel, play on the field. 300 kids a week attend that program. At the same time that's going on, our adventure camp, extreme camp is going on. That's 100 kids a week where they sleep in these hammock shelters out in the woods.
And these things that they're sleeping in the woods is like not like a tent on the ground that they bought from Walmart.
Right,
no,
right.
They are like, it's like, the way I describe it, it's like if Swiss Family Robinson and Survivor had a baby.
Oh, yeah.
That's what this,
I've been waiting for them to procreate.
That's what
Right.
And that's how we got extreme.
Yes, that's right.
Wow.
So, but they leave sight and go on these extreme adventures of horseback riding and climbing and rappelling
Sure.
and caving and rafting.
And extreme kids get to do that where the normal camp kids do not.
Yes.
Exactly,
Okay.
right.
Yes. Not that extreme is abnormal. We call it traditional, but whatever.
My bad.
The third
But they still
program.
get to eat the good food, right?
What's that?
They still get to eat the good
Oh,
food.
yeah, totally.
There you go.
The third program that's going on, which is coming to North Hills this summer.
Yes!
It's a program we like to call Freestyle.
Yeah!
So
Woo!
for
Shout out to
24
Freestyle.
years, kids have packed their bags and come to camp at Woodlands. This summer, we're packing up Woodlands and bringing camp to them. So we'll
awesome.
have 2 teams of 24 college kids out on the road on a 10-week road trip all through the Southeast, showing up every week in a different community, running a week of Woodlands day camp on a different church or school campus. So that's going on. But the 4th thing that's going on at the same time, all of those, is this program called SALT.
SALT. Okay.
And SALT is our leadership development program for 16 to 18-year-old students, where it is an application process, not a registration process.
Sure.
So you have to apply.
You want the best of the best.
We want
You
the
have to.
best
You
of the
have
best. So our youngest programs, like Pee Wee Camp, starts at 6-year-olds. Freestyle starts for 5-year-olds. That develops into our junior camps, which develops in our junior high, develops in our teen camp. Teen campers, we are looking for the absolute best of the best. People who, students who say, man, I take my faith seriously. I'm not perfect. I've got warts. I screw up sometimes, but I take my faith seriously.
Right.
And way back to the first question, that's a really big, on the spiritual side, we're looking for people that take their faith seriously,
Right.
that are taking active steps to grow their relationship with God. Again, not perfect.
And they're owning it.
Totally.
It's not just the faith that their parents have tried to
it's
instill
not
in
just,
them, or where they go to
I
church
show
or
up
whatever.
at church most Sundays.
Right,
It's
right.
like, I'm taking ownership.
This is what I
I'm
believe.
taking the steps. I have a faith of my own, and I'm taking the steps to help it to grow. So that's a big thing. But that's what we're looking for. We look for those teen campers that are like, that take their faith seriously, that we see have capacity to be influencers.
Oh, wow, yeah.
Not that are the most popular, not that are the most athletic, but that have the capacity to be influencers in their world, in their community, in their school, influencing people toward Jesus, because that's what leadership is. Leadership is
It's
not
influence.
the one with, that's right, they're not the one with the biggest mouth, they're not the one with the stage presence.
Or the comedic timing or
Exactly.
whatever. Yeah, it's
Leadership is influence.
Right.
You know, I mean, when I was a high school student, I was, to this day, I don't look like it right now because I've learned how to turn it on and off. I'm way more introverted than I am extroverted by nature. Like
I would never have known that.
No. I wouldn't either.
I have to push myself kind of, you know, out of my comfort zone, you know, so it's not who's the most extroverted, it's the one who takes their faith seriously, who says, you know, who we look at and say we think they've got the capacity to be influencers. So that's kind of what we're looking for in SALT, and they come in for not one, not two, but three weeks during the summer. That's right.
Unforgettable.
That's right.
Three
The most
weeks.
epic,
Yes.
the most incredible, the most, dare I say,
Unforgettable.
3 weeks of their entire life. So, so SALT comes in. There's actually a couple of variations of SALT, but our standard SALT program, our flagship SALT program, they come in for 3 weeks, and really it's 3 weeks where they get to, you know, they've been coming to camp for, you know, some years,
Right.
and like they've seen the production side of camp. So in SALT, they gotta get to step behind the
The
scenes.
nitty gritty.
Right.
Yeah,
right.
and see a little bit more of the blood, sweat, and
Speaking of
tears.
grit.
A little bit
Exactly,
more of the
exactly.
prayer. They get to step behind the scenes and start serving in some of the service kind of parts
so
of camp.
good. That's so good.
They get a lot of intentional, deep discipleship. They get to build this incredible community with the rest of the SALT campers. So it's a really great program for them to develop as leaders, but it's also an incredible pipeline developing future leaders for Woodlands for when they get to college and they come back on summer staff. I mean, I think this summer we had, 13 former SALT campers
Oh, wow.
on
That's-
our staff.
that's
So let me interrupt you.
Yes.
So if I'm
Keep your eyes on the
listening
road,
to
Timmy.
this,
Yeah.
I'm thinking, okay, if I want to be a Big John one day, or if
Yeah.
I want to be in this world, I'm crazy to not consider SALT.
Yeah.
Right.
So one of the things I was thinking, you know, while you were talking is, this is hard to fake.
Yeah.
Like if you're not doing this Monday through Sunday
Right.
every week, you can't just turn it on and trick Big John.
No.
And even if you do, because I mean your application process isn't flawless,
Right.
but even if you do, it's gonna show. Because 3 weeks doesn't seem like a long time,
But it is.
but it's
24/7 because there's no break.
right. And when you're doing what you're asking them to do,
Pressure reveals
Yep.
Yes.
one way or the other. It reveals authenticity or inauthenticity.
Ooh,
Yeah,
that's
so
good. That's
I
good.
think as even if you're an adult listening to this, like I'm feeling convicted from the Spirit just hearing
Absolutely.
the challenge to teenagers, but these are things that you need to start doing now so that you can be the real deal. Your faith is your own. All of these things are happening so you can hit the ground running on day one
Yeah.
of week one.
Yeah.
So,
Can I speak to that for a second?
Yeah.
Actually, let me go back one question. I have one more thing to say about SALT.
yep.
So the other side of SALT is actually a new program that we have called LEAD, L-E-A-D, and it's the freestyle version of SALT. So
all right.
when our freestyle team goes on the road, we ask our synergy sites, our host churches, to recommend to us some high school students that can step into it's just for the 1 week that they're there, but can step in and help lead in freestyle, because freestyle it's for 5 to 11-year-old campers.
Okay.
So this is for high school age kids to step in and start
And
putting
begin
that
a
leadership
process.
into practice. That's
Nice.
right. So there is a version of SALT for freestyle that our North Hills students could totally step into in that
Yeah.
lead program while we're there.
And how would they? Oh, go ahead.
No. How would they what?
How would they go about applying for that, or how could these students get involved in the
Yeah,
lead
so
program?
so we're going to provide North Hills with some information, and we really lean on the church partners to help vet, because you know them way better than we do,
Sure.
to help vet and say, hey, boom, 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 these young men, these young ladies,
Big John Jr.
they would be incredible. So let me jump
Little
forward
Timmy.
now.
Is that what we call it? Tiny Tim.
Oh.
God. We
That's
have
what I
Big
know.
John and Tiny Tim in here.
Fantastic. Fantastic. We need our own
That's
little
gonna
traveling
stay.
road
And I think that's important because now our kids know freestyle is coming back. It's
Yeah.
going to be
Right.
in our backyard. And one thing that I want our kids to think is, 5 through 11-year-old, that's not for them,
Yeah.
right? We're a middle and high school ministry, but I want your way of thinking to be, okay, I'm no longer just a consumer. Like, I see an opportunity, I can step up, and that gets noticed, so when Big John is looking for SALT that actually goes to Cleveland, Georgia,
Yep.
we're going to be looking at who's stepping up here in Taylor, South Carolina now.
Right.
And I think that's a great point, that there is, at some point, if you want to be an influencer, you have to flip the switch in your mind from being a consumer to being a contributor.
And a servant as well.
Yeah. I heard Andy Stanley talk about this one time. It was awesome. But, he got up and was like asking people, hey, consider volunteering. And he's like, if you just come to church and you just kind of, you sneak in 5 minutes after it starts and you leave 5 minutes before it ends and you're just filling a seat, we need that seat.
Wow.
We need you to step aside. You go, warm the bench at another church. If you're a new Christian, that's one thing. But, if you've been coming for years and you're just a consumer and you're not a contributor, we need your seat,
Wow.
That's, it's like, whoo,
That's convicting.
But for real, it's like for you students who take your faith seriously, get off the bench and get involved. Because that's one of the things, like if you apply for SALT or you apply for summer staff at Woodlands, it's one of the things that I'm looking for. In fact, I have people that that read these applications, that's one of the things they're looking for is where are they contributing? Are they serving in their local church? Are they serving in their community? Are they mentoring a young man? I had a phone call last night from a dad back in Cleveland, and he's like, man, I have a son that I really would love somebody to pour into. Like parents are looking for people to pour into, and you high school students, you would be able to play such a role in being able to step in and mentor elementary or middle school kids, because the reality is, like the freestyle kids, 5 to 11-year-olds, they look at high schoolers.
Oh yeah.
Oh.
They're the coolest people on the
superheroes.
planet.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah.
And as a high schooler, you may think, okay, I'm like the biggest dork in my high school, whatever. To a 5 to 11-year-old, holy
You're a rock
cow.
star.
Totally. Yeah.
You're a rock star.
Leverage that platform, and I love even that idea. I was telling somebody the other day, that's how I've always viewed the persona of Big John. Because it's John Estes is like, whatever. I was a banker at some point, but Big John carries with it some influence. So I've always looked at it as a platform, that how can I leverage being Big John to influence others toward Jesus in a way that John Estes could never do.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
So
and because you're going to reach a demographic that's massive.
Yeah.
But as your team expands, the body has so many different parts.
Yeah.
Sure.
And so I can speak to someone in a language that they'll get it, or
Yeah.
Korean, or you,
Sure.
kind of thing. But it seems like you have a beautiful trickle-down effect with
Yeah.
that. Leadership, good, godly, biblical leadership is so contagious.
Yeah.
And that's why I love that word SALT. Because SALT does stand for something.
Yeah.
What does it stand for?
It stands for service and leadership training.
Okay, but also when Jesus says, like,
Yeah.
you are the salt,
Salt of the earth, yeah.
right.
Salt and light. Salt is something that people crave.
Yeah.
When you have a potato chip, I promise you, most people just don't have one.
Right.
You have
And if
3
you
or
ever
4
tasted
handfuls.
unsalted potato chips or
Oh, yeah,
unsalted
they're-
nuts or unsalted, but
Right.
salt like brings out those delicious fatty flavors.
Right, yeah. Oh, my phone's ringing. So, and I think that's something that is really key that I don't want to miss. Like, good leadership is contagious.
Yeah.
Like, when I said that top 20 men in my life that I just look up to, all of them love Jesus, and every time I'm with them, I just want to follow him around.
Yeah.
Right.
I just want to be with him. When I see Peter Hubbard, I'm like, oh, hey, I just want to follow him. I want to take as much of his time as he'll allow me to.
Right.
Big John is one of those people where when you see him, you're like, oh, hey, and you don't just keep walking.
Right.
Unless you see him every day. But when
Right.
you see Big John,
He's boring.
right, you're like, dude, that's someone that I want to hang out with. And the
Right.
reason why is because they are so much like Jesus in my life, and there's something about that is inspiring
Absolutely.
and contagious. And you
Yes.
go, you know what? It's like when Paul said, follow me as I follow
Yeah.
Jesus,
Yep.
type thing. And so, man, if teenagers can start taking that mindset of being a Big John at Eastside High School,
Yeah.
being
Yes.
a Big John at Wade Hampton,
Where you are.
Yeah.
Where God has
even,
planted
like when you think about the disciples, like these were not spiritual rock stars.
No.
Like they weren't
were
like
not.
the best looking, they weren't the most athletic, they weren't the best in the classroom. In fact, when you get into, I think it's in Acts, it's like, these people looked at the disciples and they were amazed because they were ordinary, unschooled people
Yeah.
who had been with Jesus.
Right.
It's
Yeah.
like, whoa.
And people were drawn to that.
Yeah.
Which
It
humbles
was-
you. It humbles you
Yeah,
because
it
you don't
does.
think it's your merit or your talents
No.
that's the qualification.
Right.